You know my story, right? Rise to fame from the pain to glory, right?
Cedric Barberet. I'm the owner partner of Bistro, Barberet and Bakery in downtown Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's a small bakery in the front with a restaurant in the back. We are actually in the restaurant part of it, where the atmosphere will be a casual French fine dining, so nothing too crazy. I know Lancaster expect that French dining being a little more frou-frou kind of talking, but we are very down to earth, and it's a really casual dining where you can be there every single day if you want to.
Now, describe to the block we're on and kind of how there's a lot of themes to this block, and you guys, everybody very much works together and kind of, it's a very nice community.
Yeah,
here.
it's a very unusual block in downtown Lancaster. You have the Marriott Hotel by the plaza. Down the street, you also have the market, which is one of the oldest green market in the United States, in operation continually. And then when you come toward us, it's kind of a melting pot of, I guess, different nationalities in some ways. Bistro Barberet is a French-based bakery and restaurant. Tellus next to us is more like Irish, and then next to us we're also surrounded by another Irish pub, Any Bellies. And if you go across the street, then you have a Belgian place. So pretty cool. In the daytime and the weekends, there's a lot of things to do. And then at night, it's like a very different night crowd. It's very vibrant. A lot of people going out, younger, older generations. It's pretty cool. I like it.
The differences of the quaint bakery style, like it's when you walk back here, you're transformed into a different place.
Yeah.
So kind of talk about how you laid the building out or laid out your business like that.
So the idea at the beginning, when we came in Lancaster and we were able to get in these locations, the idea was to create a bakery. And the idea of doing the bakery was most of the people who look at doing a French bakery will look at something very traditional. So in terms of visual aspect of the building or the structure, I will say that people will expect the place to be a lot more rustic, like maybe some of those franchise, like Le Pain Quotidien or whatever, subway tile, rustic wood, and this is really not what I was looking for. I wanted something that's more like more trendy, what's in Europe, and less messy visually. So more like let's imagine like a jewelry store. And you look at those stores, they have those casing, which is like one layer, and it's display on one face. There is no multiple layers of stuff and a ton of pastries or whatever, which is what the typical bakery will be. And we wanted something a little more focused on the display of the pastries, trying to be a little more high-end, and then be able to play with a palette of colors. So the idea was like, hey, when I'm walking, I'm in a jewelry store. And then it showcases the pastries, it showcases what we're capable of doing, and we like to play with the color, so it's a lot more vibrant, and then it kind of lay out the good aspect of what it will be. The restaurant came after that because our partners wanted to have a restaurant. So since I've been working in the restaurant business also a little bit, I took on the challenge. It's a lot more to chew on than I was expecting. But we're still here, so it makes a proof that the model works. And that part of it, we wanted to be more like a retro 1920s Parisian style restaurant will be, but with like a modern flares. So the bar is very retro kind of with the lighting. There's a lot of wood paneling around the entire building, and then we wanted. My wife wanted black and white pictures. So we worked with a designer called David Live, a company, and the pictures were like black and white pictures from Paris. And then when you go in the hallway, you have the map of Paris also, which is pretty cool because a lot of people are looking like, oh, where am I going to be in vacation? Oh, I was there, I've been in that street. So they can look at the map and then interact in the hallway with that map. And then here it's a little more sober, a little more, I would say not a speakeasy, but it's kind of, because even at those days, a lot of people still discover that there is a restaurant in the back, and customers of the bakery are like, I didn't even know that there was a restaurant. And I was like, where have you been? There's a hallway, you just have to walk to it, and then you find that there's something. But I guess, some people are like so focused on the pastries with the colors that maybe they don't look around and maybe missed out that there is something. So we try to promote that as well. And it's been a pretty well thing. I mean, we have a beautiful bar, like everyone. COVID have changed a lot of way of doing business, and what we decide was making sense or not, and making sure that also our staff was able to have a balance of life, personal life, and work environment, which in the food business doesn't really exist. But we wanted to try to implement that as well. So we did a lot of change, but here we are now.
That's awesome, and even to the details of on the walls and everything like that. I love how you go with 2 black and white, and then the color 2 black, like the aesthetically, the using. It's hard to use black and white and grays and then throw colors in, but you guys did it very well. Is what I'm trying to get. You can tell the intent. It was very intentional.
That came after, because at the beginning it was just black and white.
Okay.
And we wanted to, little by little, we try to break the image of being like a fine dining restaurant. Yes, we try to serve great food, but we want to make sure we serve great food casually. We don't have tablecloth. Well, we try to be a lot more low-key in terms of service, very approachable with the customers. But we're still in Lancaster, so some people will have the aspect of a French restaurant to be a little more upscale. Even so, we're trying to break that image of what we have. I know that the bakery in the front kind of set the tones, and here we go. I don't think, respectfully, we're talking with a lot of people in Philadelphia or New York, there is something similar to what we do, or I haven't found it. I know there are other places somewhere, other states and stuff like this that will do the kind of pastries. So the tone is like very set up as soon as you enter the bakery. And I'm sure that the people have the expectation of that in the restaurants, but we're trying to break that. So at the beginning, we're like, okay, what can we make it to be a little more less cold? Not being cold, because I think the wood panels and everything gives a little warmth or whatever, but some people may think it's a little cold. So we decided like, let's put some little prints of like in the 1920s advertising with colors to kind of break the things, and that's the ideas of what we do. Little by little we change. We may change at some points the chair and be a little more a bistro kind of chairs, and that would be the idea, something a little more retro and bring some colors a little bit. So but we try to stay as very consistent and without being too drastic in doing change, because people are used to certain things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it really works. Tell me about tell me your story.
My story. So once upon a time, I'm from France. Was born in Cannes, in the south of France, but I was raised right away. Like my parents lived at a very young age. I lived in outside of Lyon, a small town called Villefranche-sur-Saône. My parents, my father is a pastry chef. My mom used to be in the retail, clothing and stuff like this. And then they decided to take, they had a goal at one point to, they both worked in the same bakery when I was a young teenager. My dad was a pastry chef, and my mom was at the retail side of it. And then an opportunity arose for them to move in the United States. That was back in the 80s. And they're like, oh, let's take the American dream. My dad had the American dream for quite a while. I wasn't so much at that point, but it was exciting. You're like 13 years old. You're like, yeah, we're gonna go in California. I'm gonna have a house, a dog, a swimming pool. Yeah, that's what you think about the U.S. back in the days, and it's still even now for most of the people who want to come here. And they sold everything, all their belongings ready to go. Visa was like getting set up, and then that was back in the days where the dollar was super high, and it was still the franc, it was not the euro at that point, and the dollar collapsed dramatically, like a financial crisis or whatever in the 80s, and visa get shut down. They couldn't get into the countries, dreams shattered. So they were able to buy the bakery where they were working in, and they took that. So I was like, all right. So back to school in France. As a young kid, you're like, oh, I wanted to go to California, No house, no swimming pool, no dogs. Like, okay. So you still do your things. And school was not my forte. When you're 16 years old, you have a choice you can do. If you study great, you can go to secondary studying and try to advance in your late high school. Or at 16, you can go to what they call a technical school. And I had passions. I was 11 years old. I was helping my dad in the bakery all the time. I liked it. It was fun. I did a few little competitions because there's a lot of competition in France. And I was 11, 12, 13 years old. So there was no category for my age group. But I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And people were like, oh, he's 11 years old. He's doing something. Let's promote him. And I loved it. And so I decided to go to pastry school for 2 years and work with my dad. I was hoping that maybe I'm going to have an easy life, but my dad was kind of on the opposite way. He was like, you're going to work twice harder than the other ones, and you're going to pay for it. So I did work quite a lot, and then got my diploma. Actually, in France, when you still pass an exam, and if you fail, you don't have a diploma. And then after that, I went to Nice, south of France. And I worked for one of the largest bakery in the south of France called Pastry. And their volume of chocolate was about 4 tons of chocolate a year. And it was still artisanal, just one location, not multiple locations. So it was very, very interesting about the aspect of doing that. And I did my master there for 2 years. And then I came back to my parents' place. I took whatever I learned in that modern place and then translated it into my parents' bakery and tried to bring a 50% change in the bakery to have something newer, better line, much more modern, because it was very classic. Worked well, and I had 2 options. Option number 1, going to work a season in the Alps in a Michelin star restaurant, 2 Michelin star, and hotel, which was pretty cool, under a very big pastry chef that has the title of, they call MOF, which is Meilleur Ouvrier de France, which is best worker in France. It's a title that's Bistro every 4 years or 2 years, and you have to work like an insane amount of workload in order to get where you are and not necessarily be able to get that title. So it's a very honorific and a very prestigious title. It's like almost like a World Cup champion. Or I had an opportunity to work in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, a small hotel in a small touristic zone. It was like 20 minutes from Ionisport. It was called Austerville Hotel in Cape Cod, East Bay Lodge. They closed now. And I took that, American dream. So like, yeah, not necessarily the most glamorous place, where you probably had better input in working in the Michelin star and then make a career out of that and become even bigger or stronger, but every path they are different and maybe the result end can be the same. So I moved to Cape Cod. I did a season, so I had a small visa, And then I worked there for about 4 or 5 months, and the place got shut down by the IRS. Welcome to America. It's like see federal agents with padlocks and chain, and they were bolting the place. And I'm like, what's going on here? And I'm like, okay, time to go somewhere else. So looking for other options. I didn't want to go back to France because I had the experience was interesting. Even so, it was a very small town. But it was cool. People were very nice. Working a lot, but it was a very interesting way of learning something different. So two other options I had up to work. Number one was working in New York City, and I was in touch with, at the time, François Payard was the executive pastry chef for Daniel Boulby restaurant. And I was in talk with him to see if he could take me, and I needed a new visa anyway, so since the sponsor was no longer operational, you need to find another sponsor. And then the other option was to go to Florida in Palm Beach and work for someone that I knew, my parents knew, and he was opening a restaurant with another partner in Palm Beach. Daniel, New York scares me a little bit. Never been like a big city, large city boy, so that scares me. Working for such a big company scares me because I know when you don't have the paper at that point, so they say that they're gonna make the paper, it takes a little bit for you to get it. So I know how it works. You're gonna work hard, a lot, and you will get it eventually, but at the beginning you're gonna work for it. Mm-hmm. So I ended up to go to beautiful Sunshine State of Florida, Palm Beach, glamour. I was there for in a place called Maison General. So the name was kind of French with Brazilian name, but it was a French restaurant, totally French. The chef there was an old generation of chef, Gerard Rutter. He worked for General de Gaulle on the SS France back in the glory days, and Paul Bocuse, Georges Leblanc, and other places. So it was very, very interesting in terms of like between couple generation of difference, but working with someone like this was very interesting. I'm a pastry chef in trade, so cooking is not my experience. But during that 6 years I was working there, I had to do garde manger, I had to do dessert, plated dessert, intermezzos, with doing mignardies, and then the chef was like, we're doing soufflé, and I'm like, soufflé, very, very interesting. I'm trading in pastry in a boutique, so restaurant pastry was not like something I knew very much. And I was like, what's soufflé? It's like, don't worry, it's easy to do. You do this, that, and it's cool. Or you can make it a la minute. Well, we're gonna do 16 of those. Well, like, killing me. It was pretty interesting. It was fun, and we did it for 6 years. We were one of the best restaurants back in the 90s, from 1990 to 2000-ish. One of the best restaurants in South Florida. All the silverware were like Italian, French-Italian Sambone silverware. Glassware were German Riedel, Crystal. The flatware were all Versace. Like a charger were like $250 a charger. I remember a boss having like a pile of 10 chargers, and they broke, and it's like $3,000 on the floor. It's like, okay. Anyway, it was a great time. Place. The owner decided that he wanted to close. I had a good of a name in Palm Beach, and worked at the Four Seasons for a few months as an assistant pastry chef. But really didn't click into the corporate world because I've been used to work by myself or with a very small team. So at that point, I wasn't very a good fan of it. And it was a little hard for me to level up with that kind of level. Even so, it was very high end. Mm-hmm. It was not what I was looking for. And then the chef of Mar-a-Lago, a place that kind of on the news lately, especially his owner, was looking for a pastry chef. I knew the place by reputations, especially in the food industry, saying that no one that works there as a pastry chef were able to hold their position more than a season. So, kind of like the show that he's been doing for 10 years, where he fires everyone, I guess. So I work at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, everyone knows Mar-a-Lago is owned by Trump. Not doing politics, so let's put that aside. But that was way before that, and I worked for him directly. I was the executive pastry chef of Mar-a-Lago, and I held my positions for 6 years. So I must have done something correct in order to survive 6 years there. It was a very interesting. It was a beautiful place. Members only, 480 members. Membership was expensive back in the days. It was like 175,000 just to put a foot in the door, and then put another 20K to be there every year.
Monthly, yeah.
You still have to pay for everything. So, I don't know where the money goes, but great place to do like some of the biggest charity events and functions, like the Red Cross Ball, which was the second largest after the one in Monaco. We were doing 1,000 covers, busy seasonal place. Interact with the family every weekend, so I was in direct contact with them. That also gave me the opportunity to work with some very good chefs and famous people in the showbiz, because every weekend or every month there was something happening. I also did the wedding. I was the person that did all the Trump wedding cakes. I was in charge of doing the wedding cakes. Actually, Melania is the one who actually decided that I was going to do it. And so I done the two weddings, because there's a small version of it and a large version. The small version was a to-go in a monogram box. And then the large version was the humongous cake that's on the news all over the place. That was kind of fun to do for a month and a half, 2 months. And it's kind of like bring me a little bit on the spotlight and help me out in terms of getting the name in the business. I will say that a couple years ago, I've seen those mini cakes go on auction. Somebody had them in the freezer and pulled one out and sold for $2,000. So I tell my customers, I'm a good investment. You buy one of my pastry, you put it in the freezer, you put it up maybe 10 years later, maybe you can make a good value out of it, you know. But that was interesting because it happened 2 times. Surprised about it that some people will do that, but it's good. And then, you know, when you work in a country club, there's so much you can do. It's still for the people who are members, casual food. They want like feeling home. So there's so much you can propose and so much that people will not go to.
Yeah.
So I thought it was time for me to go to another challenge. Back in the days, he was opening Trump Tower in Las Vegas, and one of his executive chef was going there. So I wanted to go with him and open that place. I actually, when they opened, got 1 Michelin star after 6 months of opening, which was pretty good. But I guess the big boss didn't want me to leave to Vegas. So I gave my resignations and I left. And I went to Vegas, to another location, and I worked in Vegas for about a year with a MOF, so best worker in France, and also World Cup champion in pastry, Jean-Claude Canestrier. And I used to be the executive chef for the Paris Hotel for like 12 years, so a huge machine. They were doing like 20-something thousand covers every day. It's crazy. So we opened a smaller hotel together. He was the executive pastry chef, I was the pastry chef, and we worked in collaboration for a year. But the insanity of an opening in Vegas took a big toll on me after a year. I was working 7 days a week, 18 hours a day. barely sleeping, drinking Red Bull like there is no tomorrow. I could be sponsored by Red Bull. Definitely, like 10, 12 cans a day. It was because it was, I mean, you barely sleep. And it was too much. So I was looking for an exit. And when I used to work in Florida in that small restaurant, a very old chef named Jean Banchet. And Jean Banchet is one of the old generation of chefs that everyone knows if you're in the food industries. That kind of create what they call the Nouvelle Cuisine. He had a restaurant called Le Français in Chicago. And very close friend of Paul Bocuse also. He used to come all the time at the restaurant, and he found out I was trying to look for something else, and he put me in the direction of Philadelphia. And he called me, and he's like, I know a chef that's looking for a pastry chef very desperately. They just got rid of the other one before, and he's really looking for someone, like right now. I said, who's that? And he says, Georges Perrier. I was like, and I'm like, the name sounds very familiar. And then it clicked, and I was like, oh, isn't that the chef that's kind of very loud and kind of a little rough on the kitchen? And it's like, yes, indeed, but if you do your job very well, everything will be smooth. Well, like, okay, I mean, what's to lose? It's one of the best tables in the world back in the days. It's still at the end of the Grand Lebec fan, but it still was one of the best tables in the US. And I talked to George, and he's like, well, why don't I flew you over here, and then we'll do a tasting, and we'll go from there. So I go to Philadelphia, I flew, I met him, I visited the building, he had the Lebec fan, but he also had like a place in the main line called George's. He also had a partnership with an Italian place called Table 31 in Comcast Business, and then me in Atlantic City with the Caesar Palace. So quite a lot of places, and I was going to theoretically take care of all that. So I go over there, and we all have a meeting. I met with the executive chef, Nick Almy, Top Chef winner and owner of L'Oreal, and 2 other places that he's opening now is with his partners, and everything goes well. And then he's like, why don't you come for dinner? I'll set you up a nice meal at Lebec Fan. So I had like a 12-course meal with wine flight of 12 wine flight. And because we're French, usually the wine flight is a couple ounces, but there was full wine flight. And George was with me, and he was drinking as well. And we end up at the bar downstairs, and more drinking. And neither me or him were waking up the next day for the tasting I was supposed to do. And he's like, I called him, I was like, I just woke up, I think I'm late for the tasting. And he's like, oh, don't worry, because me too, I don't know what happened last night. I was like, me neither. So he's like, well, don't worry about the tasting, I like you, you're hired. So I never did a tasting, and actually the place where I do a tasting never really go that far, but the place where I don't do a tasting actually fits pretty well. So I guess him and I had a good relationship or whatever, and I did work for Georges Perrier then from 2009 to 12 until he closed, and I was the executive pastry chef of the entire places. Never having a problem. I mean, if everyone has seen the Netflix or the movie King George, yeah, it's what you see in the movie in the things is actually live, because I was there. You don't really see me; you only see my hand working on the Baba rum. But my first executive chef here, Tyler, actually was on the show. It's the one that gets yelled at all the time. So. Indeed, he can be very brutal in the kitchen, but he's a very nice person also. So I have a great respect for him out of that. I know a lot of chefs that work there. Actually, are some of the best chefs now in Philadelphia or around here. Then I worked for when Le Bec Fan closed. We also during the opening of Le Bec Fan, we opened After Bread, which is a French bakery, where my wife Estelle was the assistant manager, and I was doing the pastry from Le Bec Fan, and we were sending it into the location, and then they had people doing bread on the premise. Then so all that got sold, and then you kind of step out, and I went to work with Steven Starr. So Steven Starr is a different restaurateur. He's, I think, what I can call a restaurateur, has about 40 to 45 maybe restaurants in all over the East Coast, from Florida now to New York and to Philadelphia. Some of the most known places will be, for people who are in Lancaster or in the area or know Philadelphia, Park or Budokan are the two monsters. But you also have Morimoto's and Le Diplomat in DC, which is another big names, and many more restaurants. I mean, we're talking about like a huge group. So I end up to be the pastry chef, a French pastry chef, of a pastry chef of Budokan, an Asian concept. I did a tasting there, and Steven was there, and I will always remember because two of their directors, Steven was there, and the executive chef. I did a tasting, and I did a tasting like I'm going into a Michelin star. The fun part of it was like the word of Steven. You know, this is not Jean-Georges, and this is not a Michelin star restaurant. It's like, I am aware of that. I'm just trying to show you what I can do. Asian flavor included, and all the techniques, what I can do. Like, can you do what we're looking for? Like, if you're paying me, I can do whatever you want. And here I am. I worked for Budokan for about 3 years. I also, during that transition, the pastry chef of Park left, so I run Park, which is a big operation, probably one of the biggest operations in the city. And I run Park for 6 months in the pastry department while I was running Budokan, which is another monster also. And then from time to time, if there was an opening to do another restaurant, I was there for the opening. I was there to do the tastings or meeting people.
It's incredible.
So I did Upland in New York. I did the opening for a couple of days of Le Diplomat also. And we were able to meet some great people. It's a big corporation, this kind of thing. Well-oiled machine, and it was a great way of learning restaurant volume. I've done volume in banquet, like in Vegas we were doing 12,000 covers a day, but that was a little different, even so it was all the outlets. Here was more like restaurant-wise, learning how to do 600 covers every single day with a small team of people, trying to manage it and making sure that everything runs well. Without having any issues, and that was great. And then during that period of time, my wife and I were talking about like maybe we should be nice to try to see if we can open something. We had a couple of things. At the beginning, we were in Philadelphia. We worked in Philly. We lived outside of Philadelphia in Lower Merion. So and we're like, okay, let's see what we can do if we're able to do something in this city. I mean, we all know in the food industry, if you go to the banker and say, I want to open a restaurant or a bakery, the banker is going to have a red flag on your face and say, you're at risk. How much money you want? Well, let's put a number. $500,000. Do you have $500,000 in collateral? Mr. the banker, if I have that in collateral, I won't be in front of you. Somehow. Or maybe we won't have that kind of discussions. So, I need the money. And it's like, no. And plus you need to put the money down and all that stuff. So when you're like a small person, you have to look either for a private person or something that want to invest in something or believe in you. So we had couple opportunities. None of them went well. One was at the PAFA building, the Museum of Fine Art. There was a location in the bottom where they were trying to get somebody down in the bottom corner, and I thought it was a great location. But they wanted to do a lot more, and they didn't want to take any risks. They wanted you to come with the money, and they wanted to put like a small percentage down, and then if you fail miserably, and they have a brand new structure and have a nice day. So I'm like, no. Then another location was in Ardmore called Viking. So that Viking bakery was a very, very old bakery. They were in bankruptcy process, but they didn't want to give up their business like this. It was very old, and it may be a risk. I think it was maybe the location at the time was maybe not the best locations, but I think it could have been if you make up a name into it. But they didn't want to give up the business that easy, even so that everything was like a century old. A lot more investment after you get the place, and then 2 months later you have to do everything. So I'm like, we were on the same space. After Brad was another one where we worked for George Perrier, and we came up with an idea, and the investors, their lawyer behind it, we talked to them, and was like, this is what we can do. 5-year plans, we come up, we give you every year we give you this, and we'll give you to the numbers you want. But they wanted the money right away, so I was like, I don't have the money right away, but I can give that, and if I fail, you still have the praise. What's the risk? I mean, if you want the cash, I think you have the cash. You're not worried about getting that much if you're a billionaire behind it. And didn't work. And then another place in Wayne, we tried the same thing, but there was a smaller person, and he wanted the money a little more upfront. So none of them worked. And then 10 years ago, a friend of mine that used to own a Duffy Catering, it's in Darlington, a very old catering company, was looking to expand in Lancaster, and talked to me, and it's like, I'm meeting those people, and they're looking to invest, and maybe it would be nice if you can put a point of sale somewhere, a bakery or whatever. And then I ended up to meet them, and I walked in Lancaster, visit the city. 10 years ago, the city was not what it is now. And I'm sure people will say, 20 years ago, you should have seen that place. You couldn't even walk there. 10 years ago, I was still very spooky. And I'm like, okay, but the kind of pastries I'm doing, who's going to want to get with it? And then I start to look a little deeper, and then I start to understand that you have LGH, you have the courthouse, you have lawyer, judge, doctors, people live outside of the cities. There's 500,000 people living outside of the city. Not a lot of them are coming in the city, but there's still 500,000 people with very nice income. So I'm like, okay, that could be an interesting thing, so why not? And then we were looking at the old Kilt Museum at one point. And I'm like, wow, that'd be cool. They wanted to do something like an even space upstairs, which was beautiful. And then on the bottom, when you enter that Kilt Museum, on the bottom right, left, you can see a beautiful store down there. I was like, yes. And I guess it got sold before they were able to. And then they look at this building, and this building was in bad shape because this is a brand new building that we are in. The structure that was there before was a very old building that was empty for 16 years. I think it was a Rite Aid before, and people were saying a bank and a shoe place, and so many things it was. And so they bought this place, and was like, and the guy who was doing the catering kind of disappeared the pictures. It was just me and the building owner here, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna get this building, we're gonna tear it down, and we're gonna bring a brand new building. And this is what we like to do. And we invest on the first floor entirely, and then their son will run a bar upstairs, that now becomes like a restaurant, kind of whatever it is. And then they have an event space, kind of an event space. And it's a huge space, but it's not used very much. And then and they're like, well, you want to do a bakery? We would like to do a restaurant as well. So I took both of them, and we run the bakery and the restaurant as we speak now. And then they run their bar that becomes a restaurant on the road. And what I said to the people is, it's same ownership, different partnership. Or same partnership, different ownership, depending on who you are. They run their things, I run my things. We're two different entities. People sometimes call us to make a reservation upstairs. Tough luck, I don't know. I don't take reservations, so we get yelled at. What? Like if you tell us and you ask what's the menu at Barberet, I'm not sure they're gonna ask you and be able to tell you what it is. So, and since 2015, August 4, 2015, we opened Bistro, Barberet and Bakery. Already, almost 10 years.
If you're an aspiring entrepreneur or one that's looking to expand, contact the Free Mind Network today and we'll help you scale, we'll help you start. We're going to be there for you in your corner.